put your hand back on your stomach, and I want you to take a deep breath. I want you to use your stomach should actually expand. You want you to imagine that when you take that deep breath, your stomach moves out, and as it moves out, it's drawing air into your lungs. Take as deep a breath as you can, and I want your stomach to stick out as far as possible. And believe me, I've worked on this muscle for a long time, so this is gonna freak you out. Ready? Deep breath, and now we want your stomach to come out as far as possible. Here we go. And I'm a pretty skinny guy. That looks funny, right? When you breathe from your diaphragm, it's the only way to fill your lungs to maximum capacity. And so when you're singing, you want to make sure that you're assuming a posture that makes that action possible. You want to feel comfortable. And maybe you want to, and this is a funny thing to say, and a lot of girls are going to be able to relate, maybe you want to wear clothes that make you feel comfortable that way, that you don't want to feel like you got to tuck things in. You want to wear something that's maybe a little looser fitting, or maybe, you know, something that buttons up. I can create a sound, a vowel sound, like if I use an E sound. And if I'm singing through my face, if too much to the opposite, you know, extreme, I can actually shut that sound off just by plugging my nose, right? Watch. There are a lot of singers that sing like that. And then there are other singers that sing with the opposite extreme. They produce sounds that are always at the back of their head, and they neglect this wonderful resonant cavity that we all carry in our skulls. So they sing at the back of the throat. And when you close the nose, you can see it's actually making no difference whatsoever to the quality of my tone. The fact of the matter is, proper resonance is a balance between the two. If you're resonating properly, you should hear some variation in the level of your voice and in the tone of your voice by plugging your nose, but it shouldn't disappear. But if that is making absolutely no difference in the tone of your voice, then you're singing from your throat. So to achieve maximum projection, even in your speaking voice, what we're trying to do is resonate this whole nasal cavity that we have in our heads becomes a resonant chamber, almost like a speaker box. But what we want to imagine that our voice, from our diaphragm, our air center, the power of our voice, the strength of our voice comes from our breath, is actually reflecting off of the hard palate, the roof of your mouth, and is naturally coming out of your voice. It's not being pushed, you don't have to force it through your face, and you don't have to neglect that nasal quality to your voice. You're trying to find the 50% medium point, that balance point, where you're using everything. You are using your vocal cords, which naturally live in your throat. You are using your resonance, your power of your resonance comes from your air, but your face should be resonant, but the maximum tone doesn't come just from your nose. So even when I'm speaking right now, you can hear in my speaking voice, if I do plug my nose, it sounds like I have a cold. But it's not like my voice disappears. It's a balance. We want to make sure that our voices are projecting off the top of our roofs of our mouths. We almost have to envision when you're singing for proper resonance that your voice, the air support is coming up. It's not coming back. It's not being pushed forward. It naturally resonates and comes out of your mouth very naturally. So I would advise a lot of singers, don't worry so much about not singing from your throat to such a degree that you start to sing now through your nose, where you start to be obsessed with projecting through your face, because you're going to create a very unnatural vocal quality. So something that you might want to do, not when you're not in a room full of strangers where you're going to be embarrassed, when you're on your own and you're working on your voice, measure that as you're singing. See how much your tone changes, because your tone should change by about 50%. The volume of your voice should fluctuate by about 50% if you start to plug your nose. There's a couple of things I want everybody to keep in mind. Warming up isn't necessarily about testing your range, the range of your pitch right off the bat to make sure you've got all your notes. See, I hear that a lot. A lot of singers, when they warm up, they want to kind of, they want to make sure they've got warmed up their entire range. No, not yet. You don't want to test the extremes of your range until the last 2 or 3 minutes of warming up. You don't need to make sure that your high notes are there yet. The most important thing you need to do is make sure that all of this, all of the muscles in your neck are relaxed, that your vocal cords have been introduced easily, they've been eased into singing. You just let them kind of awaken, because vocal cords, of course, are a resonant structure. You have to resonate. So when you're warming up, we should actually be spending the bulk of the time we warm up in maybe a 2 or 3 note range. It's not important to test the depth of our pitch or our range. It's more important that you just get it going. And so what I like to do is find something that I call your resting pitch, which is almost like the pitch of your speaking voice. It's the pitch range that's easiest for you to produce as a vocalist. You know, you can almost find your resting pitch by creating a high tone and letting it drop without forcing it to go lower. Same thing with, you can go from the bottom up. Where does your voice kind of feel like it wants to relax?